Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. July 27th, 2020. At this hour, a great American is being put to rest. John Lewis, a representative of the struggles of black people, even from the 60s, and some of the things that we had to go through as people. Beaten down, dogs, baseball bats, fire hoses, and the system of government. I guess having to go through that, I've never been a true champion of the American government. It is an oppressive regime that has been held over our heads for my entire life. And I would be remiss if I did not say that there are moments in which this nation is proud of. But most of the pride is exercised by those who have been privileged in this society, of which we as black and people of color have been denied. And yet at times we have been put in positions of power to make us feel that we are part and that we are given this position so we can have a role in change. It reminds me of living in Minnesota when they want to honor the Dr. Martin Luther King birthday. Organizations would come together, Council of Black Minnesotans, etc., and they would have a big gathering, celebration, where people of color and some of the white politicians would come and all get together and sing hymnals and talk about the struggles of Dr. King and take a little bit of time talking about the failures in our achievement process. And I heard this go on for so many years till it made me sick in the stomach. I would think that if Dr. King could hear these messages, he'd turn in his grave. So I started a moment of protest and trying to see if I can get people to focus on, rather than coming together to speak about Dr. King, that we would spend our efforts and our time in bringing about those kinds of changes that Dr. King represented and Dr. King was about. And I've gone to the council several times and they dealt with me like I see the nation deals with politicians and black people who are concerned about the situation. They said, rather than allow me to speak to these concerns, they wanted me to come in and take a seat at the table and advocate at the table, recognizing that if I did that, I could not say that some efforts weren't being made, and at the same time not accepting the fact that I'm just one at a table. And the things basically that had been going on would continue to be going on. I say that because they want others to speak in regards to Dr. King, but would not permit me to speak. I accepted that for one season, and then I got off of it because I recognized it was a trick. And to me, while we honor so many of us who have given our lives, I do not challenge the fact that we can only do what we can do. We've been given a charge, and that's where we can go. Even though I look at blacks who are in government, whether at local level, state level, or national level, I look at the cries that we as people of color have been having all our entire lives, have not changed. They're still there. And so government, I'm not impressed by any government. What I've done, my friends, over the years, I've recognized that in order to be free, you got to be set free by your own mind, set free by your own understanding of what freedom is. And that one of the greatest curses of freedom, one of the greatest chains of bondage to freedom is the fear of death. And it appears that anyone who is afraid to die will never be free unless you are of the privileged. And even they have to fight to maintain that freedom, whether it's within their own groups or at an international level. So I say, ladies and gentlemen, the struggles that I have made as far as running for office, president several times, governor of Minnesota, United States Senator of Minnesota, I did so as a write-in candidate. I did so not necessarily to win, but to be able to make a statement that the Republicans would not make, a statement that the Democrats would not make, nor would they support. And yet I made these statements as a write-in, hoping that independents or others who had separated themselves from the democratic process would take advantage of this and speak. And we know the outcome of that. You never heard of me. Not at the same time, I spent a lot of time committing what I considered crimes against the state of Minnesota, or the government, didn't make any difference. The kind of crimes that would not cause any pain and suffering to others, but would indicate that what their rules and regulations were in regards to, I did not mind. I wanted to make this violation in order to see if I can garner some attention. So I've been to jails, I've done time in prisons for the common cause of life. And ladies and gentlemen, it is what it is, and I stand here today 70 years. I'm reminded back in the 60s when Dr. King and John Lewis were out being beaten. I was a little young, and I was separated because of geography and distance to engage myself in that. Nevertheless, I did have to play a part in the process of change. You know, back in those days, you were in those states like Mississippi and other states in the South in order to vote, and they were fighting for voting rights at that time. You had to know the preamble to the Constitution of the United States and had to be able to sign your name. This were a time when blacks who lived on plantations, and that life had taught them the ways of existing in bondage. And so this movement allowed others to go out and bring them from the country, bring them from the plantations, and spend time talking about and studying with them the preamble of the Constitution, what it really meant, and even to sign their name, to stop using the X and sign their own names to qualify. It was just that stringent at that time. And ladies and gentlemen, here I find myself 70 years old, a good 50 or 60 years later, and the same troubles of yesterday are still here today. And though we acknowledge the brothers and the sisters that have been within the system, and we'd like to say thank you, brothers, for standing up, doing the best you could, but that system has still held us in bondage. We are still second-class citizens. We still considered basically 3/5 of a human. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I don't stand here excited today about anything except this moment that I have given up my life to be able to at least focus on some things that I have recognized are essential. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I say here that my move in this direction has been, I think I heard a young white preacher say it, put it in some very good words. He said, Jesus Christ did not come to the earth to make bad people good. Jesus Christ came to the earth that dead people may live. And what is this saying to say that dead people may live now? Some might say that the privileged who have an opportunity to experience some of those things that others do not, that living would make available to those who have been denied the basic fruits of survival, like food and clothing and shelter, education and health care, and to guarantee that everybody would be entitled to these resources, it was imperative that each one played a part in the creative process. That means the career of choice. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I feel connected to that. I feel very connected to that. For my role has not been to just be satisfied with 60 years of engagement within the process that allowed us to stay where we are, but to stand up for that which is life to the dead. And if the dead remain dead, it would not be because Eddie Marcus shielded themselves from the temptations of sellout. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say on this day, at this moment and at this time, we have a political process going on right now. And the truth of the matter is that those of us who have been put in positions of power, our most politically individuals who represented in local and state and federal government. You would think at a time like this, when people like George Floyd have been used as a symbol to the world, that our systems of government, not just of America, but all over the land, where pain and suffering is experienced by anyone, is a government outside of that government designed that dead people may live. In fact, their job is to kill them. And so I have to relegate myself not to that particular cause, but to the cause of life. And so, having just my voice, I would say that in order for me to be thankful at this date and at this time, without support for all humans, yes, I mean all humans. I'm not speaking just for black people. In my initial move, that was my problem. As far as black people were concerned, I was concerned about all people. But ladies and gentlemen, the situation is a reflection of the fact that in my lifetime, I've seen snotty-nosed, nappy-head black people and people of color. I've seen snotty-nosed, hungry kids that were white. I've seen it all. And I could never sit back and say, just let my black kids eat, let my people of color eat while a white kid is hungry. To me, there was only one way for this to happen, and that is for all people to play a part in the process. All people to play a part in the process, that they may be qualified, that they may be eligible, that they can smile because they, my friends, came together and created what has been called, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So as I take this moment to just say to John Lewis how I appreciate everything that he has done, how I appreciate, in fact, all of the things that black people have done. I want to recognize and make it explicit that there's still much to be done. But at this hour where we're talking about presidential election, I wouldn't and I cannot submit myself to say that I would yield one vote for Donald Trump and his people. I could not yield one vote for the Democrats, Joe Biden and his people. And the reason that I could not do that is because under the administration of Republicans and Democrats in this democracy, black people are still considered second-class citizens. And I have no intention just to beat Donald Trump because he's so mean, because he's so evil. I, my friends, want to spend my time talking about freedom to live. And if the Democrats are not talking about living for all people, if they're not talking about correcting the evils of the society, if they're not talking about no more, if they can't stand up and say we will not take another step forward until these redresses have been made, if you can't stand up boldly and say, by the power of Almighty God, whether it's in me or there, I will not care. I give my life for the righteousness that I desire for myself and for my brothers and for my sisters. So when I go to the polls to vote, November 3rd, I will be writing in Eddie Marcus. Why? Because I know I don't want to see a single person hungry. I don't want to see a single person homeless. I don't want to see a single person in need of education can't get it. I don't want to see a single person absent health care. I don't want to see a single person without a career of their own choosing. Now that's what I want. I want that because that's me. And I will give my life for that. And I have no shame in my game. And I want to thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. Goodbye.